we have a quorum, Barbara. There we go. And we're live. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the April 1st meeting of the Baltimore County Delegation. Delegate Pat Young, Chair. We have 3 bills to vote on today. I know everybody has business at 10 o'clock. So starting with Senate Bill 55, Baltimore County Board of Education Retention of Counsel. Sponsors Senator Sidnor, and I will throw to the subcommittee chair, Delegate Eversole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 55 merely puts Baltimore County school boards in line with all other school boards in the state. They can retain counsel for purposes other than one that they're limited to. I could read it to you. The subcommittee passed it unanimously. I move favorable.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion on the favorable motion for 55. See, not just because I know we have some folks missing. So I'll go through as I see folks. Delegate Metzger.
Aye.
Delegate Forbes.
Aye.
Delegate Root.
You have arrived at your destination. Your route guidance
Delegate
is
Root.
now finished.
Aye.
Delegate Mangione. Got it. I see you.
Aye. Sorry, I couldn't hit the mute and it was stuck.
All
Aye.
good. Delegate Stein. Thank you, Delegate.
Yes.
Delegate Hill.
Yeah.
Delegate Belcastro.
Yes.
Delegate Eversole.
Yes.
Delegate Grammer.
Yes.
Delegate Long. Delegate Brooks.
Yes.
Delegate Bhandari.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. I just joined. There was
Senate Bill
internet
55,
connection. Could you
Baltimore County
clarify
Board of
what you are
Education,
voting
retention
with?
of counsel. Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Delegate Erickson.
Yes.
Delegate Cardin.
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark.
Yes.
Delegate Guyton.
Yes.
Sorry, just checking to see if I'm missing anybody else. $15 in the affirmative, motion passes. All right, moving to HB,
SB.
excuse me, thank you. 414, Baltimore County Board of Education, membership and election of officers. Sponsor is Senator Sidnor. Delegate Eversole.
Senate Bill 414, as we heard last week, makes 3 essential changes to the school board and the school board selection process. It would increase the size of the school board from 12 to 13. The additional position, this number 2 would be the additional position, would be appointed by the county executive in the same manner as the governor appoints from a list of nominees from the nomination commission. And it changes the fact the election of officers to be not a majority of the number of seats on the board, but to a number of the seats currently being served, another number of members currently serving, not sitting at a meeting, but currently serving. The committee took this up. We recommended essentially one amendment, but it required a second one. I'll offer them together if you like. The committee voted 3-1 to keep the size of the school board at 12 and not 13. And that would be an amendment. It would also require then that this would just be a cleanup that we still felt the CE should be able to appoint one. So the way the bill was written, it would be necessary to assign the CE to one of the 4 positions. So that was sort of a technical amendment. We also added that if the CE is going to be appointing, that he would go or she would go after the governor. The governor would pick their 3, and then the remaining one would be chosen by the county executive. I can move those amendments if you like right now, or we can wait till we talk about them.
Let's talk about the amendments before we make a motion on them. So
That's an excellent idea.
as the bill came over from the Senate, it would increase the school board membership and grant the county executive an appointee. That's accurate.
That's correct. And the only other thing was the changing of the election of their officers, the
Changing
slight
election.
adjustment in the way officers are elected.
So with the first amendment of the two that you mentioned, it reduces it back to the normal size.
It would maintain it at its normal size, so it changes the bill, so there's not an additional member. But then would also keep the county executive appointing one of the four in that case. That would be sort of the second amendment that goes along with that.
So essentially, it would now be a bill that was granting the county executive appoints.
Correct. And the one change in the election of the officers,
Got it.
which really wasn't too much at issue in the committee. We discussed it though.
Got it. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to say how much I appreciate the work that Delegate Forbes and Delegate Eversole have put into this, working on these amendments. And, that I think that I really appreciate their, trying to find a compromise that would work for everyone. Ultimately, though, the amendment does not solve the problem that my senator was seeking to solve with this original bill, which is to increase the diversity of the Board of Education, as long the diversity of the 7 elected members is to some extent dependent on the demographics of those council districts. And so we're sort of stuck in the demographics of that. We just went through a process where the maps there were challenged, trying to increase the diversity there of those districts. And that was not completely successful in increasing the diversity of the districts. So those 7 districts are, limiting the diversity. And so really the only way to increase the diversity of the Board of Education is to increase the number of members, and so I'm ultimately going to have to vote against this amendment. Thank you.
Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess it's a question for the subcommittee chair. Was there any discussion about whether accepting the additional member or not, of just having all the appointees be made at the more local level so that those issues of diversity could probably more accurately, at least that's how we've seen it in other counties, be addressed? In other words, it seems like having the governor appoint is a holdover from before we had a hybrid board. And so was there any discussion about just using this as a vehicle to give all the appointees to the executive, in which case that would be another approach to divesting the primary goal of the bill?
Mr. Chair? The answer is no, we didn't discuss that possibility.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I know we're talking about these other amendments. I just, for point of order, if the amendments are not accepted, is this a forum where I could offer an amendment to move all of the appointees from the governor to the county executive and not add an additional member? Would I be able to do that today, or are we at the end of things I need to formally have that written up and offered?
Procedural wise, technically you could, but I would actually request that you ask for a hold so you could offer that. But we're that, and because this didn't have a cross file, that's why we're discussing the amendments before somebody's made a motion on them. But if you were going to offer something else, if these were to fail, that I'd ask you to hold, and then we hold the bill and we'd have a discussion. And then that would mean I would try and hold another meeting earlier in the week next week.
All right, thank you.
So, Delegate Bhandari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really enjoyed a very comprehensive discussion on this bill during our subcommittee meeting. I was the one who voted for the bill increasing a member. The rationale was with the 12 members, when we will have a student board member, voting member in the budget, there might be very odd number and tie. And when they vote for a policy decision, it might be very complicated. That was my rationale.
Mr. Chair, may I a point of information?
Go ahead.
The student member votes on a number of issues right now where that exists as a possibility. The student member, the bill that you're referring to would increase their voting power to include budget. But the possibility of a tie exists now. So in many ways, we're changing some things, but not others. But thank you for your input. And I want to just clarify that. Student member, it does vote on many issues right now.
Delegate Badari, go ahead. Delegate Badari, you can continue.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. And like generally 12 members will be very, it will be tie. I know there should be coincidence, but still, I prefer to, and then another thing is more voices, more expertise in the light of the size of our county. So I think that's a good idea.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate Guyton. She took her hand down. Delegate Grammer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to make sure I understand the amendment. The amendment makes one of the at-large members appointed by the county executive. Is that correct?
Yes, that's Mr. Chair. That's correct. Sorry, I should have asked you to recognize me.
And the purpose of the amendment was to avoid changing the total number of people on the board, so that way we could retain the same number and still give the county executive an appointee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Where's Delegate? So we've just been discussing amendments again, because this didn't have a cross file. So there was discussion in the subcommittee that was important to have here. There have been 2 amendments offered. Is there a motion on the amendments from the subcommittee?
Subcommittee offers the amendment to keep the school board at its current size while it's a pair of amendments, but while retaining the county executives. That the bill indicates the county executive should make an appointment. So retaining his ability to appoint one of the 4, then in that case, existing at-large appointees.
They're removing both amendments since they're in tandem.
Yes, I would like to move them as a package, Mr. Chair.
That's fine. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, Delegate Guyton.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I had to pull over, y'all, to be safe here. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. It sounds like a lot of work has gone into making this bill work, which is really great for the subcommittee. I wondered if the sponsor of the bill had weighed in at all, if he approves these amendments, or has he been a part of the discussion?
Delegate.
I can answer that question. I did communicate with the sponsor of the bill. He was not interested in adjustments that we suggested several, and he was not interested in the adjustments to the bill. He wanted to proceed as written.
Thank you.
And Delegate, since we're in discussion, what is the background concern that we're changing this bill now?
I'm sorry, was that for me?
Sorry, Delegate Ebersole. Yeah, in terms of why we're shifting back.
Right. So I can reflect some of the comments that were made in the subcommittee. It was a robust discussion, and I thank all the other members that were there. We even had a new member. She was quite helpful. There was a feeling that the school board is larger than other school boards in the state, all but one, which will soon be being reduced, Prince George's County, and that the number 12 is already somewhat difficult to manage as the number of people on the board, and 13 would be more so. And there is a feeling that we may increase the number of councilmanic districts in Baltimore County. And should that happen, we would be up to 15 members on the school board. And I think the general feeling is that might be a number that would make it difficult for them to operate efficiently. I will defer, if you want to any member of the subcommittee if I have not accurately reflected their opinions here.
Delegate Bandari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My understanding was these amendments will be presented in 2 ways. One, I voted for an amendment that the local executive will pick up one member. So now this is more combined. It's hard for me to vote. So that was my understanding. If I may, Mr.
Chair.
Go ahead, Delegate Ebersole.
Delegate Bandari, I know you've made it clear, you've indicated, I wasn't giving away votes, but you've made it clear that you voted against in subcommittee having the board reduced. if the delegation were to vote against that amendment, the second amendment would be moot at that point. So if we vote for it, the other amendment has to travel with it as far as the county executive voting, if we indeed, and we supported that one unanimously in subcommittee. So that one would naturally go along with it if we were to vote for the reduction in the number, while keeping the number same, but reducing the number indicated in the bill. So they really run as a pair or not at all, I believe, in this case, given the votes of the subcommittee.
Delegate Forbes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the senator bringing the bill, and we've all watched our school board. This is the first elected school board we've had in Baltimore County. It used to be formally appointed entirely by the governor. I think from when the bill was passed, the appointments were from the governor to keep the school board, the appointees not made by the local funding authority. And so that's why it was done that way originally. I would say that Prince George's County has a hybrid board and is going back to an all-elected board because the number of people there has been difficult to deal with. And so I support the need for more diversity. The 4 appointed members were to bring diversity to the board, and that didn't work out this time. But I would ask that everyone let this new democracy go forward the way that it was intended and see. I mean, this school board went through a lot. The superintendent was indicted just before they were elected. He pleaded guilty, he went to jail. There was debate on whether to make the chief administrative officer. The new superintendent, they appointed her. And the state superintendent didn't accept that appointment. They determined they would choose a new superintendent. He started, there was a pandemic, there was a ransomware attack. They've been through a lot, and I'm grateful for the service of everyone who served on the school board. And I ask for you to vote favorably on this amendment.
Thank you for the background, Delegate Forbes. Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the issue of whether to add a school board member or not, I was persuaded by the fact that if anything, school boards are reducing their numbers as opposed to increasing them. So, I just thought it'd be better to maintain, the current level as opposed to making the school board larger. So that's why I voted for the bill in its current form and urged the delegation to do the same.
Delegate Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just following back after the discussion. Again, I think the purpose of the bill has been lost by these 2 amendments. And so my thinking is that we either leave the bill as it is, or if that's not the purpose, then we amend it so that, and I understand about the funding authority, that there was concern that if the county executive gets the appointments, there's a funding authority issue. But I think that's more of a problem if the county executive has, a person on the board, a 1 member, who is then the sort of the designee. And that's not supposed to be the role. And I think that if you want to make sure, if the purpose of the hybrid and the appointees are to make sure that there's greater diversity for whatever variety of diversity definitions there can be, that you want that to be done at a local level. So I'll be voting no and moving.
Thank you, Delegate.
Mr. Chair, if I may real quickly. The reason we kept the county executive in, the reason the committee felt that was important is because that was part of addressing the problem of the diversity, having some local control. Thank you.
Thank you. On the 2 amendments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Go ahead and unmute yourselves and say aye, please.
Aye.
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 And if you are opposed, please raise your hand.
In Zoom or?
In Zoom, please raise your hand. I see Delegate Hill, Delegate Jackson.
Can you review those 2 amendments? It's been a robust conversation. Summarize it for us, please.
Delegate Eversole, back to the 2 amendments that we were voting on now. Just a quick summary.
The amendments as a pair will keep the school board at 12 and as opposed to the bill, which would have increased the school board number to 13, but will leave in essentially the change that the county executive appoints one of those 4 members. Just as a detail, the county executive goes after the governor. We felt we had to establish an order so they wouldn't be scrambling. And that, to me, that serves the other purpose, because if the county executive felt that some of the goals of diversity were not met, then they could, the county executive could perhaps be more sensitive to that. And then, of course, there's no other amendment, but the voting process for the chair and vice chair of the Board of Education is altered slightly.
And to clarify, everyone with their hand up is voting against the two amendments. Understood. All right. Amendments pass on the bill as amended.
Move favorable on behalf of the committee, Mr. Chair.
Second.
There's a motion and a second discussion on the bills as amended. I'll do a roll call so no one has to raise their hands. And I'll go backwards this time for once. On the favorable motion, Delegate Shalega. Oh, sorry. Delegate Hill, sorry. Your hand's up for discussion.
Yeah, I had indicated I would make that motion, but it occurs to me in this discussion that if we're going to make a motion to take all of the appointees from the governor and give them to the executive, that really should be open to more public discussion.
No worries. Understood.
So I'm not going to make that motion. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, going backwards, Delegate Shalega on the favorable motion.
Yes.
Delegate Stein,
Yes.
Delegate Ruth,
Yes.
Delegate Metzger,
Yes.
Delegate Mangione, Delegate Long.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Oh, good. Delegate Long.
Yes.
Okay. Delegate Jones, excuse me, Speaker Jones.
Yes.
Yep. Delegate Jalisi. Delegate Jackson. Delegate Jackson.
Seems to me that basically what they did.
Delegate Impalaria. Delegate Hill.
Yes.
Delegate Guyton.
Yes.
Delegate Grammer.
Yes.
Delegate Forbes.
Yes.
Delegate Feldmark.
Yes.
Delegate Ebersol.
Yes.
Delegate Cardin.
Yes.
Delegate Brooks.
Yes.
Delegate Bowler. Delegate Bhandari.
Yes.
Delegate Belcastro.
No.
Delegate Erickson.
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
You missed me.
Back to Delegate Jalisi.
Yes.
Thank you. And last chance, last call, Delegate Jackson.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, my apologies.
Okay.
Yes.
20 in affirmative, motion passes. Thank you. Last bill on the agenda.
Point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
Need time to walk to the committee room. And my chair starts promptly on time. Is there
I
any?
appreciate that. So if you need to move, if anyone has other business they need to leave for voting, feel free to do so. Moving on to HB 557, Baltimore County West Baltimore County Development Authority. This was not brought up in the subcommittee. It was one that we discussed. It passed out of the Senate, I believe unanimously, looking at my sheet. This is the bill that establishes a redevelopment authority on the southwest side of Baltimore County, taking up parts of Security, Liberty Road, and between that corridor on the southwest side. I believe Delegate Shalega, you had requested a map and one was provided. Sorry to catch you on the spot there, Delegate.
Yeah, sorry. I was looking, I was pulling the bill up on the floor system because I thought there was somebody who voted against it, but I wasn't sure. So no, I did not see a map. Is there one out there?
I know that one was sent out, and when I was talking to the
Okay, let me
sponsor-
go look. It's probably in all the documents, but yes, I understand the parameters. I know West Baltimore County, so yes, I'm good with that.
Understood. I know that folks have places to be, and knowing this came from the Senate, there wasn't a cross file. But is there any discussion before there's a motion on the bill? Anyone have any discussion or questions? Yes, Delegate Shalega.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So certainly all of us understand the many challenges facing West Baltimore County. I am completely supportive of what this bill is trying to do. However, I have read the bill, and I'm sure each one of you has as well. And I would just like to point out, I'd like to say, first of all, that the bill did strike in the original bill, they were giving eminent domain authority to this new authority. And so they struck that, which is good because, you know, no one, if you're not elected, you should not have eminent domain authority. I think that's, you know, just wrong. But part of this bill that remains is that they have taxation authority. So if you go to page 9 of the reprinted bill, the authority on lines 10 to 12, the authority may establish, impose, and collect tolls, rates, rentals, fees, and charges relating to the authority's undertakings and property. And I'm very uncomfortable with giving taxation authority away from elected bodies. Of course, they also are given the authority to issue bonds to bond their projects. But this would certainly affect very potentially all of Baltimore County. So if you do not live in the if your constituents are not in this West Baltimore redevelopment area, your citizens could very likely be paying a tax that you don't get to vote on. And so I would hope that we would strike, if it's the will of the delegation to move forward. I think we need to look at whether we're going to give them taxing authority. And then finally, I mean, there are other issues in the bill, but these two main issues on page 8, when it talks about eminent domain, lines 18 and 19, it says the county may not delegate the power of eminent domain, and that should say shall not. There should be no gray area on eminent domain power. This is very serious. And, prior to me being elected, I don't think Delegate Impolaria is on the call on the Zoom today. But, for those of you that didn't live in Baltimore County 20 years ago, there was a similar authority that had been established on the east side of Baltimore County. And they did indeed use eminent domain. They attempted to use eminent domain powers. That was called Senate Bill 509. And that was petitioned to the ballot, successfully overturned. And Delegate Impolaria would tell you this was the start of his career. He was one of the property owners. Yes.
Yeah, and to be clear, this is not the same bill from 15, 20 years ago that went to the ballot related to granting expanded eminent domain authority of Baltimore County. The county and every jurisdiction has the ability to potentially use eminent domain in very, narrow corridors. This is not that effort that happened earlier. I just want to point that out. I'm giving you.
Yeah,
anyway.
You're right, Chairman, but it is similar. There was an authority set up. They, it was all good intentions to revitalize the east side of Baltimore County. And so in that regard, it was very similar. Finally, I'd like to point out that the bill also, when they established the makeup of this authority, they have on page 6, each member of the Senate of Maryland whose legislative district includes a portion of West Baltimore County, one member of the House of Delegates from each legislative district. And I think it should be each member of the House of Delegates. So if you live over there and part of your district is in this authority, you should be on this authority. I don't think that we should then, let somebody else determine if there are 3 of us that live in that area, that only one of us gets to serve on that authority. So those are 3 of my major contentions with the bill. And with that, I'll open it up for others to discuss their concerns.
So one, I know that multiple members have informed me of their 10 o'clock meetings, and I also have voting session as well.
This does
Is the
deserve full conversation though.
Yep,
Mr.
it is the
Chair.
week. It is the week before we go into crossover week. So I'm going to hold this, but I'm going to say that we're going to keep your inboxes, keep your eye on your inboxes. We'll be having an impromptu public meeting and discussion so we can answer some of your questions and also have answers and a robust discussion. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. With that, enjoy the day. We will see you soon. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
No move. Thank you, sir.